Welcome, beautiful friends out there, to another session of 30 Minutes with the Modern Mystic. Welcome, Mr. Modern Mystic.
Thank you very much, Sascha. And Mr. Modern Mystic is curious to know what we're going to talk about today.
Today we're going to talk about, due to popular demand, how to open your heart, or opening your heart.
That's an interesting one. I always say the way to live is heart first and not head first.
Why would it be closed to start with? Like, if we say opening our heart, that would suggest that it's closed.
Yeah, it basically is. It's like people, there is a great fear in humanity, in the world. And that fear is mostly subconscious. And somebody might say, well, I don't have any fears, but they do. We all have fears. It starts as a child. About 70% of people fear public speaking. I'm quite sure the internet has removed it for a lot of people who've done a million little
TikToks.
videos for it. But beside that, we have these fears, and one of the things that happens is we learn more or less subconsciously to create a psychic shield for the solar plexus and the heart. Now, we're sort of aware of removing that shield from the solar plexus and to become more open with our emotions and not so guarded in our emotions. But so many people never really open the shield over their heart. So there's a psychic shield to keep people out, because if they come in, they will hurt. And I've experienced this myself living in a community. My heart was closed to people, basically. And you think you have your heart open to those you love and your family. You think you do, but in fact, it's either closed or open, and it can't open for some and closed for others. And so it's closed for all. Now, what you don't realize as well is closed to yourself. And you are shut in. When you shut other people, you're shut in. And this isn't an open heart you're closed in. This is a shut heart that you're shut in. And so life reflects that. Life reflects it. Till one day you begin to realize. And I remember when I lived in the community, I felt very, very unloved. And I certainly wasn't able to love myself. I wasn't even close to it. And when you're living in a community of 50 or 60 people, 40 to 60 people, you sort of, and you're on your spiritual path, is a very, very lonely place if your heart is closed, if you're shut down. And I came gradually, not fast, but I became aware that I needed to be loved. And then logic said, but your wife loves you. But I didn't really feel it because I wasn't allowing anything in.
How would you know, how would someone know if their heart is closed? If people were now to ask themselves, and okay, I'm not sure, is my heart closed? Is my heart open? How would you, what would be states you could be in, or what would be typical of someone whose heart is closed?
I think if you were a typical human and one of the masses, and I don't in any way look down on the masses, there's a slightly lower consciousness, I don't think you would know, and I don't think you would know how to deal with it. But when you're on your spiritual path, gradually it would become obvious that you're feeling closed in. Basically, the first sign would be you feel unloved. There'll be a feeling, friendship, yes, but not truly love, the way that you craved as a child. And then if you look back in your youth, you might find you never had it. You were just a kid in the house, and you always craved to be loved and never had, you might have had affection, but affection isn't love. And for a lot of parents who don't love themselves and have never been loved by their parents, they have no idea how to love their kid. My father didn't know how to love me. He didn't know because he'd never experienced it. He didn't know how to love me. He could be affectionate with me at times. He could play with me at times, but there was never a feeling in me, I feel deeply loved. Mum, yes, I felt loved by her. And so I could compare, and sure, male energy, male love, you might say, carries on a different energy. But when you get to realize this, and you begin to realize then that you've closed your heart somewhere and may have closed it incarnations ago, and it simply stays there, but it's closed and it's time to open it, to take those shields away. And that's scary. I can remember I had a dream one night, and in the dream, a being said to me, you need to take off your armor and you need to open your heart. And I knew I needed to open my heart. My armor was articulation, arrogance, and aggression. That kept most people away because I didn't want them to know there was a vulnerable 12-year-old child in there. But opening the heart, I just felt people would want to hurt me, and in fact, they did. But gradually I realized that this was their hurt. It wasn't really about me. It was their hurt. And gradually, I never closed down again. And gradually I moved on to the way, no heart is fully open until you're loving yourself. No heart is fully opened until then.
I'm curious to hear what you think about this. My perception right now is that if you, and I'm not sure if that would be possible to just have the heart chakra open and then, because we're talking about the chakra basically, right? And then have the chakras above it closed really. But the way I perceive it is that if you have your heart chakra open and the chakras above are open too, especially like your third eye and your crown chakra, then whatever might hurt you or whatever might feel strange in some way is being brought into that bigger picture and is just being brought into perspective. But maybe if that's not the case, then you feel heard and then you tend to close it down. So maybe it's a lack of opening of the upper chakras that kind of leads you towards closing it. I'm not sure. What do you think?
I think that the key chakra to go with the heart is the solar plexus, the emotions.
Right.
You know, we are a very emotional species, an amazingly emotional species. And that's not by accident. And it's our emotions that trigger everything. So if you can find the place where you open your heart, you're also having an open solar plexus. You're emotionally open, more flexible, more fluid, not quite so taking everything so utterly personal. That was one of my problems. Everything I took personally, it was a personal insult or attack, and it wasn't. But that was the way I perceived it. And so you shut down. And but eventually you have to open. And I would suggest to everybody, try to work with the solar plexus emotions as well as the heart. Bring them along together. The higher ones are not so affected. It's those two. They're the key to your well-being, very much the key to your future growth. Because once you feel not everything is personal and you can feel somebody says something nasty to you and you feel it in your emotions, but you also realize this is really a statement about themselves, not me.
But does that
Then
realization
you're in
come?
a good place then.
But does that realization come through the heart or from an open heart, or does it come from, for example, an open intuition?
Intuition's always a part of it, and if you've got this closed and no intuition working, God help you. I can't imagine that, because intuition to me is the voice of your own intelligence speaking to you. To me, intuition definitely links in with intelligence, and your intuition is not the intellect speaking, it's your intelligence, which is profoundly greater.
Because I remember, I'm not sure who that was, or I think several traditions or several spiritual lineages, or however you want to call them, talk about the masses of humanity living in their lower chakras, and then being kind of the evolutionary process to move upwards from the lower, let's say, base, sacral, solar plexus towards heart, throat, and intuition, and eventually crown. I'm not sure what's your perspective on that, and like what is the position of opening the heart in that sequence?
What I'm beginning to realize is, we talk about the lower chakra, base and sacral, and yet the sacral is creation
Right.
and base is your energy. And I don't see them as lower. I mean, they're just the beginning, as it were. But what I am beginning to see is that all chakras, that every chakra has a lower energy and a higher energy. And
Yeah.
so as you first tap in, your consciousness is lower and you tap into a lower energy, which doesn't mean lower bad, lower negative,
No, no, I get
simply
it.
lower energy. And as you begin to work, this is why I say one of the most important things is going through the chakras on a daily basis. Then you're giving them focus, you're giving them attention, and you're doing it consciously. And as you do this, the power of the chakra increases. They're literally what I would call the spokes, which are threads of energy within the chakra, begin to multiply, and the heart becomes the chakra becomes stronger and clearer and more powerful, which in turn you become stronger and clearer and more powerful. And it creates a cycle of opening of self-empowerment, just doing that on a daily basis. And in the earlier stages, I didn't realize, you sort of think the chakras are all the same always. No, they're not.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I have never really fully bought this whole idea of someone not having all the chakras
I've
active
never, I,
because
there's some
because
strange,
yeah, because I mean, being alive, in my understanding, in my perception, being alive in a human body, having all those organs and perceptions, etc., means that all of your all of your chakras must be functioning. Now,
I,
to
I've
some
never
degree,
heard, yeah, I've heard it, vaguely heard that you can be born without some chakras, and I don't buy into that. And you can be born or without a soul. But sorry, I don't buy into that one either.
but the frequencies, like you're mentioning, that makes sense. That maybe for everyone, they're all activated, but as you go along, maybe for some people, all the lower ones are already on a higher frequency, but from the heart chakra above, they're not, maybe.
Well, generally speaking, most of the ones that connect with the physical body up to the crown, certainly they're there, but their level of activity and their frequency will vary with various people. And being on yours consciously, everybody's on their spiritual path, but being consciously on your spiritual path certainly puts in far more energy into the chakras, the very fact you're conscious of it. And this crown chakra is basically the connection to a greater reality. And so it's an important chakra. They all are. There's none that are less. They're all important. So although we start at the base and work our way up, if you don't have base energy and you've got COVID and you feel completely wiped out, you'll suddenly say, hey, what's wrong with base energy? Let me have some. And so I don't see there's lower and higher. There is a starting point and a so-called finishing point, and that happens to be an ascending scale. And I think if you look at it in an ascending scale and throw out the word lower and higher, it gives you a better perspective. But we like to polarize, so lower and higher
Right.
polarize. But for you and I, maybe it's okay. But when you're beginning this, you think lower is lower, and it isn't. Then you think lesser, and lower is not lesser. It's simply you've got to start somewhere, and that's the point to begin of ascension. And so the
So,
ascending point begins with the base.
so in our journey to open our heart, or let's go back to the question what opening our heart actually means in that context. So the chakra is there for everyone. The chakra is working for everyone, maybe in different vibrational layers, depending on your evolutionary stage. But when we're talking about a blocked heart, we're talking about something on top of that chakra, right? Something like a block.
Well, yeah, it's basically metaphysical, the block.
Yeah.
You couldn't see anything there, but it can through to being blocked valves in the artery. You know, the metaphysical precedes the physical. And so if you have a block in your love relationship with yourself, then to show you that it will often manifest in the valves are blocked up. But of course, medical science doesn't look at that at all. And therefore, they look at it from an entirely different picture, and something is at fault. But we are metaphysical beings, and the body is basically doing its best to reflect to us and show us where we have metaphysical blockages, because all blockages are metaphysical.
So how did you open your heart? How did you remove that shield or blockage?
It was a long, slow process, more than anywhere, probably in the community, because I didn't like people. And if you don't like people and you put yourself in with anything between 40 to 60 people all day and every day, there's some serious challenges. And when you learn that they don't like, most of them don't like you, the challenges escalate rapidly. And then if you're fortunate enough to realize that you do not like yourself either, then you're between a rock and a hard place. And what are you going to do? Sit there for the rest of your life, or begin to scrutinize within and be completely honest about yourself and ask yourself, you know, why don't I like myself? And then ask yourself, well, am I spending all day with negative thoughts, negative comments, sarcastic, critical? And if I am, then how could I possibly like myself if I'm spending all day negatively reducing myself? And that's where I began. And I found, yes, that's what I did. You know, I've been there and done that.
And did that realization immediately open your heart further, or
No, no, there's no immediate. It's a process. It's just a process that you get in. I remember how, I'm ashamed of, well, I'm not ashamed because it was where I was at. I remember when in the community, I used to talk other people down to make myself feel better. And one day I realized what I was doing and I despised myself for it. I thought, oh God, that's terrible. I didn't realize I was doing it, but the moment I did, I stopped. And that's the first positive thing. You stop doing that. And then one day you say, could I stop talking about myself badly to myself? And you realize, oh, this is a big order. This is what I do all day and every day. And so gradually, I began to look at that. And I realized I couldn't stop the dialogue of negative self-talk dialogue, but I could begin to change my relationship with myself very slowly. And that change in the relationship with myself put a change in my self-dialogue, because it's a self-dialogue that we use that is creating ourselves. You know, we're here to create ourselves, and our self-dialogue does that. The dialogue that we use of other people is so often not really true at all. It's just to present an image. The self-dialogue is what we really feel about ourselves. And gradually you work with it, and one day you begin to realize, wow, my self-dialogue is becoming much more positive. You didn't attempt to change it, but your relationship with yourself is changing, and that changes with it. So you've always got to begin at the very foundation of it, rather than an expression of that foundation.
and is that process then the same as dismantling the shield?
There's a great similarity. There's a very great similarity. That's a good observation, Sascha. there's a great similarity. You can't just take the shield away. It's a process, because in a way it isn't there. You've created a block. So all you can do is begin to see the block you've created metaphysically and begin gradually to dismantle it. And yet there's a common perception. It's good. People used to say to me, how do you shield yourself in public when you give a talk?
Yeah,
And
very
by
common.
that stage, I didn't. I said to them, I don't shield myself. That's me out there. They're all me.
Now, interestingly, none of what you just said suggests, though, that there would be a shield, right? The things that you talked about were about self-criticism, scrutinizing the way you talk to yourself and you talk yourself down. But none of that would suggest that you would have created a shield. So at what stage were you aware that there is a shield? And like what did you specifically do about that? Because that's opening the heart, right? Removing the shield.
I think it began in this life when I first went to kindergarten. School. I think I began to close down my heart, and they lied to me, they betrayed me. My parents said these people are lovely people called teachers, and they will love you and teach you.
Right.
They weren't lovely people. They didn't love me. They bullied me and cajoled me and threatened me, but there's nothing. And gradually, I just closed my heart down to them. And gradually, I moved from being a sweet child to a little terror, because it was the only way I knew. I was in a fight. For me, all my school years, which I left at 14, was warfare. And I had to defend myself against the aggressors. And the teachers were aggressors. And I, as it happened, got thrashed about 3 major thrashes in my time at school, where I'm thrashed in front of the whole school, every kid's watching, to public humiliation. And believe me, you close your heart down, you close everything down you can to survive it. That's what a private school did for me. Now, I'm not saying that happens to every kid by any means. And today, sometimes the kids are the aggressors and the teachers are ones who are frightened. That's happening more and more commonly. But that's how it was for me. So there is, and I would suggest that for most people, the heart closes very early in childhood in self-defense, not deliberate. It's the only way. If you close it down, the words don't go so deep. The pain isn't so great. And trouble is, most, as they grow into adults, forget they ever did it. They don't know they ever did it. It's a subconscious reaction. And they don't know they did it, and they don't open it up. And on a spiritual path, part of your spirituality of connecting with the divine within is having to open up, let the love in, the light in, and to find the divinity that was always there.
So let's go back to your own journey. So now you were finding out that you could stop the negative self dialogue, and you were getting better at that. What was the next stage in working with that, opening that heart?
The next stage, because if you take as you gradually move self-criticism, you'll find that somehow you create a vacuum and you've got to fill it in. So I began to fill it in with self-acceptance. This to me just seemed like the common sense to accept myself. That was a big, powerful, positive step forward. Not that I'm perfect, although today I think everyone's perfect, but that's a different story. Perfection.
You can't be perfect because I'm perfect.
Well, there you go. But not that I felt that I was perfect, but I was acceptable to me. And that's a huge step when you feel that you can accept yourself for who you are, not for who you might be or could be, but just who you are in the moment. Most people don't ever get there.
Yeah, very sad.
It's a powerful step. And once you're there, you're moving along. It'll just keep unfolding itself step by step in front of you. And in fact, the self-acceptance probably never really comes to an end. That is always there.
Okay, so on our to-do our tutorial, how to open your heart, first step, if we go along your path, is checking your self-dialogue, your negative self-talk, and working on that. Then next, you fill that gap with self-acceptance
Well,
dialogue.
you begin first to turn it from the negative to the positive. That you begin to talk to yourself kindly, respectfully, with gratitude for who you are. And then comes self-acceptance. And if you do it in that process, or whatever works for you, it's an organic process. You're heading toward the light. And the steps sort of will reveal themselves and unfold themselves to you. But the process has to begin somewhere. And you begin to realize it's not the world that has a problem. It's not every one of my friends and family. Maybe they've got their own, but I have a problem. And all they do is reflect my problem back to me. And when you get to that place, then you're in a good place. You're at the starting point of a new you.
Is that understanding like the key to your heart? Could we say that? The understanding that it all falls back on you and that there is no one to hurt you, and that very
I think
understanding, that realization of, oh my God, it's all me.
I
And
like the word realization because understanding is always based in the intellect,
yeah, yeah.
and the intellect understands so many things that it's got completely wrong, but its understanding, as far as it's concerned, is right because it stands on the foundation of the past.
Because then
And
there's nothing to protect from anymore.
so we need to stand on the foundation of the moment. And realization is a good one when you realize, okay, there's no bogeyman out there, there's just me, and I'm my own bogeyman. There's nobody out there, nothing out there creating fears. I'm creating my fears. Do I need to keep doing this? And just the stop of creating your own fears is an amazing thing. Suddenly there's an enormous sense of relaxation inside. You know, today I don't create fears. It doesn't mean there's never a situation that I shouldn't be fearful in. I'm probably now too stupid to feel fearful. I
So
just
in
feel it's all okay.
so I'm just seeing this picture that in a way, as you lift the curtain and more light comes in, the shield in front of your heart slowly goes down, and it's a simultaneous process. And it's not that you take the shield away, it's just that you let more light shine on yourself and you let it in.
In a way, I like the term the shield melts. In the
The shield.
warmth of the
Yep.
sun, in the light of the sun, the shield melts because it was sort of hard, self-condemning, I'm not good enough, shut myself away, and it all just melts and is gone. And that's a process that's different for every person. The speed of the melting, and some for people is very, very slow. Other people, it goes quickly. It depends where you are in your own state of consciousness. If the higher, it's an interesting thing. There's a lot of people today. I'll mention this as somebody sent me a video, or two people on the same day sent me a video from a Swedish girl to me at 85 named Jonah. And she has YouTube channel, and she now has reached 4 million viewers. Now that's pretty impressive. I wish she could teach me how to do that. She has 4 million people follow or view or whatever. And she said to them, if you had a few seconds, a moment to say to 4 million people something, what would you say? What would your message be? Please send me a small video, just a matter of a few seconds of what you would say. She got thousands sent to her. And so she put together a video very professionally done, of all these, one blending in after another. And I'm going to put it on my Facebook page, probably today. I really advise you to watch it. It's incredibly uplifting. But what it showed me was, she said this is only a fraction of the ones I received, but she's going to, on the end of every video that she makes, and obviously she does a lot, she's going to put a few other messages until she's shared them all with everybody, which is beautiful. And what it made me realize, a lot of those people, they all talk in love and compassion, nothing we don't know, but they're saying it, and that's beautiful. And what you begin to realize is, these people know in their consciousness that love is the only way forward, but it doesn't mean they're living love. It doesn't mean that love is filling their every moment. One guy says, I'm a depressive and I'm full of anxiety, but I know deep down, he said, the only way forward is to be positive with myself. Now, it doesn't mean he can live it, but he knows. And that knowing, that inner knowing that they share, that is the great awakening. It's not that they are living it all, it's there, it's in the consciousness. It's created their direction, and their direction is now to move in that direction. The process, that's something else altogether. It's very, very uplifting, very inspirational. 2 people sent it to me the same day, so I'm going to share it and put it on my Facebook. It's beautiful.
Looking at the time, seems like we have gone a little bit over 30 minutes already, but that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is.
You're a bad timekeeper.
Yep, I'm a very bad timekeeper. Thank you very much, Michael. And thanks everyone out there for listening if you've been here all the time. And as always, make sure to click the like button, the share button, comment below, share it with friends, etc. Send us some donuts. No, we're not accepting donations. We do actually, but no donuts. And
the donuts you can keep, but if you have questions and if you have a subject you'd like to hear us talking about, send it to Sascha. So far, nobody has. So does that mean nobody's listening?
Oh no, there's some comments below, and there's some suggestions which we might pick up along the way.
I've seen a lot of comments, and they're very nice, and I thank you. We like the comments. Otherwise, you feel your words are going out into the great out there and dropping into a hole. And is anybody listening? But yeah, I like your comments, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Michael. See you next time.
Thank you, Sascha.